You're not communicating to a crowd that's a standing crowd, but you're communicating to a marching parade, right?
Mm, I like that.
And so this idea that the message is going to wear out, I can only say something once and then I have to say it again, is just completely false.
Well, hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. I'm so excited to dive in today. He's a brand marketing expert from Creative Business Company. He's a specialist in developing positioning strategies that perform, and he has a decade of experience leading large-scale engagements over 15 countries around the world. Faisal Siddiqui, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Kirby, for having me on. Pleasure to
Yeah.
be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so excited to dive in today. So, got to do a little bit of research on you. And so kind of some questions kind of directly into your area of expertise. So if you're listening to this podcast, how can you build a big brand on a small budget? That's what everybody wants to know, right?
It's a common question. I think the short answer is you can't do it with performance marketing alone.
Mm,
And the reason why, I think, especially with a lot of the clients that we work with, is they don't have unlimited marketing budgets. And so they need to be really looking at their cost of acquisition, right? So we can't spend an unlimited amount of money to acquire a customer. And if you think about generally, like there are two main types of marketing. There's brand marketing, which is
mm,
broad-based advertising that sells a bit of a soft story about the company. It's not trying to sell a product right away. And then there's what we call direct response, or often it's called performance marketing, which is that's more trying to sell something right now. So
mm,
you could use a promotion or a discount. And for a lot of small businesses and brands who can't afford the typical brand marketing with the billboards and so on and so forth, they'll often invest all of their money into the performance marketing.
mm.
Let's do the hard sales. And you've got to. We totally understand that. Not everyone has a budget to do big brand marketing type of stuff. The challenge with the latter approach, which is the performance marketing, is that your cost to acquire a customer can really run away from it on you.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great point.
And so, if you think about why has this become kind of an endemic problem, and why is this facing so many businesses? Well, if you think about the advent of digital performance-based marketing, doing ads on Facebook or doing
Mm,
ads on using Google or what have you. The great thing about all of these platforms is that it allowed people to compete at a lower cost per ad, right? So it
yeah.
made advertising a bit more democratic. And then it was also more transparent. You got the data, you could figure out, did it work, did it not? All of those things are wonderful, and we're big proponents of performance marketing ourselves. One of the challenges with a lot of these ad platforms, though, is that they have a hidden flaw. And what that hidden flaw is that they're all based on the auction-based bidding system. And so, what is an auction-based bidding system? Well, auction-based bidding system is that you have lots of different brands who are competing to own keywords. So, say for example, someone's on the internet. I'm selling shampoo. If someone types in shampoo or different types of conditioner versus shampoo or whatever, I want my ad to show up there. Well, you and probably all of your competitors. So
Yeah.
immediately you're in a bidding war, right?
Right.
And if you think about buying a ticket to go to somewhere warm in the winter, the price of that ticket's a lot higher than it is in the summer.
Right.
So,
Right.
in exactly the same way, what happens is you enter into an inflationary environment where the cost to acquire each one of those ads, to have your ads shown, goes up.
Mm,
And what's happened over the last decade, and at an even more exponential pace of the last 2 to 3 years, is that the cost to acquire a customer has gone 2 or 3 times higher. That's
mm,
the first thing. So your ad costs have now gone up. The second challenge with performance marketing is because you are targeting ads based on keywords, you are what we call only going after a small sliver of the market.
Mhm.
And it's the small sliver of the market who are actively shopping the category right now.
Mhm.
Why can we say that? Well, if it's based on keywords, I've got to be typing in something about shampoo, right?
Yep. Yep.
I have to be somewhat warm. I have a need I want to solve. I've got some dirty hair. I've got some dandruff. I don't personally, I'm bald, but in our fictional, example, this person has a problem they want to solve. There's a great statistic though that comes out of the Ehrenberg Bath Institute of Marketing in Australia, which is called the 95-5 rule. And what the 95-5 rule says is that over the lifetime of any company, 95% of the revenue that they'll bring in, get this, will come from customers who are not shopping the category right now.
That's interesting.
So what does that mean? That means only 5% of the revenue you're going to get this year are actually going to come from people who got a problem, who are looking for a solution, or comparing one shampoo brand versus the other. The other 95% don't have a need right now, don't have scratchy or itchy hair, and don't care about your brand. So performance marketing, because it's based on keywords and it can only go after people who are actively shopping the category, is ignoring those 95% of potential shoppers. And we really boil it down. We call it's the difference between converting existing demand versus building future demand. Mm. So that's the second reason. And then the third fundamental reason why it's not a good idea to put all of your money into performance marketing is inherently you're using the wrong sales approach. So if you think about the types of messages that work in performance marketing ads, it's a really small space, you've got to sell hard, and you're probably going to go, and the most effective thing to say is like a 2-for-1 sale or some type of discount or limited time offer. So that's great for those 5% of people who are shopping the category right now. But if I don't have a need and my hair is not itching, that means nothing to me.
Right.
And so that same type of message as well does not reach the 95%.
Right.
So what we try to advocate for our clients, and we don't just work for big clients, we work for startups as well, is that you have to think about your marketing and you have to allocate your marketing budgets around 50-50 between the hard selling sales stuff, but then also the brand marketing. And the way we think about brand marketing is we're not talking about Super Bowl ads or bus billboards. In the digital age, what are we talking about? We're talking about adding value. We're about delivering unique insights on your category or trying to help your client solve their problem. And you really want to make it early. It's not really about it's not really about shampoo. When I say added value, I'm not talking about creating a blog saying, 10 ways to know the difference between one shampoo brand or another. Right. I'm talking about way earlier. We could be doing blogs or white papers on how to live a healthier lifestyle so you don't lose your hair, right?
Right.
And so by delivering that soft content, I want listeners to think about brand marketing in that way and reframe how they think about brand marketing. It's not about selling a product. It's about telling a simple story about your company, and it's about helping them solve their problems far earlier in their purchase journey. And really the name of the game here is, with brand marketing, you're not trying to compete at the point of purchase where it's really, really expensive. Rather, you're trying to hit the customer far earlier in the journey. And doing so is cheaper, it's easier, and there's far less competition as well.
Yeah, I love this, Faisal. We're kindred spirits on this. I 100% agree with all the stuff you just said there. And again, there's nothing wrong with performance marketing. I kind of call it direct marketing, same concept, where you are going for the sale. Nothing wrong with that. But I think you do need both to have a well-rounded marketing plan. So I think that's great advice, man. So next up, I've heard you talk about challenger brands. So how can a challenger brand position themselves for profitable growth?
Well, I think this, again, I'll start with what not to do, and then I'll go into what to do. Okay. The first dragon I'd like to slay is that there's this kind of corrosive trend in thinking about purpose in the same breath as talking about positioning. And so you'll have a lot of small companies saying, I don't know, you'll have let's take our shampoo brand, for example. You'll go to their website and they'll say on their About Us page, they'll say something about how their purpose is to strengthen their communities one hair strand at a time or something like that. And this is kind of rife throughout marketing, where purpose became this kind of fad. And the challenge with, I would even use the word indulging in exercises like this, is it does have a certain internal value for employees, maybe rallying them or whatever. But it's incredibly value destructive to use any kind of purpose messaging in your marketing, and for three reasons. One, all purpose statements are bland by design. So if you think about how you write a purpose statement, you generally go up the marketing benefit ladder and you say, here are features, okay, that unlocks certain benefits, but let's go beyond the intangible benefits, let's go to the emotional benefits, and then let's go one rung higher. Well, you and your competitors in your category are all doing the same exercise. And when you go up the benefit ladder so many times to talk about your purpose, inevitably you get into a really generic place, this is exactly why, if you look within the airline category, the purpose for Delta, Southwest, American Airlines, I guarantee you, in fact, I know for a fact, all says something to the fact about helping communities connect together, right?
Yeah.
Or any telco is going to say, we're helping people come closer together and build communities. So just using or engaging in that in a purpose initiative is fine, perhaps to rally the troops internally, but you don't want to use that as your marketing message because it's generic. The second reason is that it's not actually related. If you think about the themes that take place within a purpose statement, they're more about kind of helping communities, a bigger why, right? And often that bigger why isn't related to the problem people are trying to solve, right? So in technical marketing jargon, we basically say they're not aligned with the drivers of purchase. And then the final reason is a lot of these purpose statements tend to, when you activate them, when you write about them, they tend to be written in a single type of personality tone, which is this very let's save the world kumbaya type of tone. And that's very creatively limiting for a brand. If you think about some brands like T-Mobile, they're very shouty. They've got a lot of attitude, right? So you're not allowed to do that. So going back to positioning, how should a challenger think about their positioning? I want your listeners to think about a positioning as really distilling the unique value your brand can provide. And especially for a challenger brand. So the way we define challenger brands, anyone really not a number 1, 2, or 3. Yeah. And if you're not a number 1, 2, or 3 in the category, you have to give me a heck of a good reason to not go to those top 3 players and even consider you.
Right.
And so really when they come to your website, you can't afford to be talking about your community and CSR programs or any of that. What is the unique value that you can deliver? So that's the first thing that we think about, is distilling the unique value. The second thing we talk about when we're doing a good positioning exercise is it's not just something that sits within the marketing department. It's not just a communication thing. So we often talk about aligning an entire organization around a single positioning. Why? Because that positioning should inform the customer experience. It should inform the service experience. If you think about Ritz-Carlton, their positioning statement's a famous example is ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And what's the beauty of that example? Well, their main proposition is delivered through their staff. And so their positioning lines speak directly to their staff, and it informs a type of service culture. And then finally, you want to dramatize that positioning. You want to talk about it in the most dramatic way possible. So we talk about tone and personality. And then you want to talk even about the visual identity. How can we express this positioning in a very unique way? So if you think about T-Mobile, they are the Un-carrier. And their former CEO, Jean Leger, had a famously hot temper. Why? Because he was angry about the injustice of the telcos against most Americans. They're screwing you out of your money, right? And then their visual identity challenged their positioning of being the Un-carrier by being hot pink. It didn't look like anything else in the category. So there needs to be a really clear line between the positioning, which is the unique value that you deliver. It has to be expressed beyond just communications. It informs the experience, it informs the product. And then finally, you express that both visually and verbally across the different assets of your brand.
Man, that's good stuff. This is like a masterclass. I really appreciate this. This is good stuff. So how can you get the impact? Because I mean, TV is something that historically, if you wanted to make a big impact, TV was one of the ways to go. So, but how do you make an impact of a TV campaign for a fraction of the cost?
Where the money goes beyond actually the media buy, where the most amount of money goes in creating TV ads is actually in the production shoot.
Right.
So if you think about now, you have to rent a space, you have to get extras, you have to do voiceover, you have to do editing, all of those things. So we came up with this idea, and it's available on creativebusinesscompany.com, where we talk about getting a year's worth of ads in one go.
Hmm.
And the basic idea is you can save a whole heck of a lot of money if you pool all of those production costs and basically say, we're going to go on we're going to go on set once a year. And then from that single shoot, we're going to get 5 or 6 commercials.
Mm.
And the only way to do that is to say, we know exactly what our positioning is. You know this. In a positioning, there's different, what we call brand pillars, there's themes underneath. And within a single ad, what you have to do is before you go on set, you're not just writing for one 30-second commercial. But in our 2-4-5 framework, what we talk about is you have one 60-second commercial. Then you have what we call 15-second short stories. So you're using the exact same creative, but then you're cutting it from the 60 into the 15s. And then you're also engaging in a photo shoot. So then you're going to get a static library of images, which you can then use on your organic social. So just by thinking ahead and doing a bit of pre-planning and saying, what is the total number of messages that we want to deliver to our audiences in 1 year? And then really write your scripts and write your commercial scripts so that it yields you all of those outputs by just going onto the set once.
That's a great idea. Well, it's super effective to do something like that. I like that a lot. Okay, final question. What's the biggest mistake small companies make with their marketing?
Other than putting too much money into performance marketing, I would say it's switching their message too often.
Okay.
And so there's really good data which talks about how do you improve the probability that someone's going to remember your marketing. Well, very simply, if you think about the number of times that you have to engage with your audience, and there's this Ogilvy quote, David Ogilvy, the famous advertising legend. He always said, you're not communicating to a crowd that's a standing crowd, but you're communicating to a marching parade, right?
I like that.
And so this idea that, the message is going to wear out, I can only say something once and then I have to say it again, is just completely false, right? There's tons more people that you're continually going to have to speak to. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, is going back to what I was saying before. There's a really interesting data around how do you increase the probability of being remembered? Well, if I only have the opportunity to speak to this moving parade 5 times, I'm not going to say 5 different things. Rather, I'm going to say the same thing 5 times.